Hello, everybody, and welcome to the third episode in our Sibling Spotlight series. And we're joined today by Claire O'Hanlon. Claire, I feel you and I go way back. I was thinking earlier, like, I can't remember first meeting you or hearing about you. It's like you've always been there in one way or the other in my mind through working at MDUK and all that stuff. But your story goes back way further than mine or Hazel's. I don't know. Do you want to tell your story a little bit?
Sure. So I had an older brother with Duchenne, Mark. So he was born in 1980. He was first child, and he was diagnosed at 2 days old. I'm assuming that was just by a CK result because my mum was a carrier. So mummy had 3 brothers with Duchenne. So she knew that there's a possibility that Mark was going to have Duchenne as well. So I came along like a year and 7 months later. But growing up with a sibling with Duchenne, as a younger sibling, I didn't know any different. So it was just normal. And actually, I was thinking about this the other day because I had the boys away for the day, and there was a family walk past us with a wee girl. She was maybe 4 or 5. And she pointed at the wheelchair and was going, "What's that?" as we drove past. And Coen, my younger son, started to laugh. He was like, "How does she not know what a wheelchair is?" And he was just like, "That is so like it's just part of life." And it kind of reminded me, I suppose, because I knew I was doing this today, and it got me thinking really how wheelchairs and disability equipment, all of that stuff was just kind of part of life. That's just how it was, and you don't really notice these things. So Mark walked until he was about 9, but I suppose I also remember being told Mark has sore legs, so like don't be pushing Mark, and if Mark needs help getting up the hill or up the steps or whatever, just give him a hand and things like that. And I think Mummy was probably a bit like me in that she encouraged him to do things as well and let him do what he wanted to do and let him know his own limitations. Like we got bikes one Christmas. Mark was mad looking at BMX, so he couldn't pedal, but he got the BMX because that's what he wanted, and you just have to make things as normal as possible. So I ended up breaking my bike. Surprise, surprise. I went head first into a fence and broke the front wheel, so the BMX became mine. So I drove the BMX for a few years. Yeah, growing up, I know we talk a lot, and even now, so as you know, I have Luke who has Duchenne, so Luke's 9, and I have Coen then who is 6, almost 7. And I think as a mum to Coen, I'm always thinking, gosh, like, does he feel left out? Does he feel like Luke's getting all the attention? Does he feel like, am I doing enough with him? Is he going to be shy like me? Am I shy because Mark had Duchenne? And you think about all these things, but when I was growing up, those type of things didn't cross my mind because it was just life.
Yeah, I think that's what everyone says. It's kind of like it's second nature. And I think from what I hear from younger siblings as well is because there's a lot already there and in place by the time they arrive. It's doubly second nature, isn't it? Yeah. I don't know. Do you remember much kind of growing up through your teenage years with Mark or your early teenage years?
Yeah, so Mark died in 1996, so it was just a month past his 16th birthday. So it was a leap year, which sounds really weird, but I always had this thing about leap years. When I was growing up, I was like, this is so cool. And every time it was a leap year, I thought 29th of February. I don't know what the obsession was. And then Mark ended up dying on the 29th of February, which it was just really weird. But
before you had the obsession with them?
Yeah, I kind of like had this. No, as I was growing up, I was like, leap years just kind of fascinated me. I don't know why.
Wow.
It's some random thing. And then he ended up dying on a leap year, so it's like kind of psychic in some way.
That is really weird.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah,
you can't let that one pass by. That's huge.
Yeah.
Well, that's a much bigger conversation that we can,
Yeah.
between the three of us, to be honest. Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Like, really.
Yeah, so it was kind of weird. So whenever he did, I was like, wow, it's 29th February, that's so weird. But yeah, so he was just past he was 16 in January and then he died in February. So I was only 14. So 14's a shitty age anyway. But yeah, so I was really shy as a teenager, and yeah, I was just so shy. And I actually recently just watched a video that was taken the night of Mark's formal. So I don't know what you call it over there, prom or whatever, but over here it's a formal. So it was on the 16th of January, and all my aunts and all were up in the house seeing Mark in his tuxedo and all of that, and I was in my school uniform. I with my permed hair, and it was horrible. But I hadn't watched that video in a long time, and I don't think I'd ever watched it actually. And my cousin, who would have been very close with Mark, more like a brother than a cousin, messaged me one day and he's like, do you still have that video from Mark's formal? And I was like, is there a video? And I was like, actually, do you know what? I think you're right. There is a video. So I asked Daddy, and he got up into the attic and found the video. And then it was mad hunt to get a VCR to play the video. So I played the video, and I was just like, oh my God, was I actually that shy? I was in my own house with my own family, like my own aunts and cousins and brother and mum and dad, my sister. And oh my God, I was like this, and my face was beaming. My aunt had asked me, when's your formal clear? And I was like, oh. Like, what? What was going on there? But come back to your question, teenage years. So yes, I was very quiet, and so Mark had actually went to school on the Wednesday morning, and it's funny that you just think these things happen for a reason. But we went to different schools, so I used to wait for my school bus up at the top of the road, and Mark got the minibus to school. So every morning his minibus would come up to the top of the road right opposite where I was waiting, and it just came up and went on. That was okay. But on this particular day, I remember sitting there and actually laughing my head off to myself, because it just looked so weird, because Tommy, the driver, was sitting there and Teresa was in the front, and Mark's head was just kind of bopping in the middle. It just looked really funny. So yeah, and then his teacher sent him home early that day. He said he was tired, and normally she just would have told him everybody's tired, but she just thought he looked a wee bit pale. So by the time I got home from school, then he was sitting in the living room, he was watching TV, and he was a bit quiet, and he was talking to my cousin David on the phone then. And then I went out with a couple of friends that evening and had bought myself a chalk pop and bought one for Mark as well, but when I came home he was in bed. I don't know why I'm going into this story, by the way.
No.
So yeah, he was in bed, but he was awake, but kind of half asleep, and so I just put a chalk pop in the freezer. That chalk pop was never eaten, obviously. So he ended up being taken to hospital that night. I was asleep, but I woke up at 2:10 and I could hear voices in the living room. And I was like, that sounds like my aunties. And then I could hear footsteps coming into my room, so I pretended I was asleep, as you do. And they just came in and woke me, as they thought, and Claire, you need to get dressed. Mark's in hospital. So I knew what was happening. I put on a green Fruit of the Loom jumper and black jeans, and went in, and I knew what was happening. So yeah, so the next day, so he died at 5:08 in the morning, and I remember thinking, oh God, people are going to be talking in school, they're going to be saying, and that's what all I was thinking of was, oh my God, because the shy person in me was going, I can't be talked about. So yeah. So
how do you think that how did that affect you in the years that followed? Because it is a long process, isn't it?
Yeah. So I didn't know. I hadn't a clue. Nobody. This is the thing. Nobody, I don't think, ever really prepares children for something like that, because at 14 you're still a child, and even though I knew what Duchenne meant and what was going to happen eventually and all of that, I think you just kind of push it to the back of your head and you don't really think about that type of stuff. So when it did happen, I didn't know how to react or how to kind of manage that. And then I remember the day of Mark's funeral. After the funeral and stuff, it was, you know, an Irish wake, everybody back for stew and all this. But after that, me and my cousin and Mark's friend, my friend and another friend, had gone up to the grave, and this woman had came across. She obviously didn't know us. She thought we were just people from the school. Came over and she was talking about Mark and, oh, cousin, it's so sad, and you know, all this kind of thing. And I was trying so hard not to cry, and one single tear dripped down my face, right? So I had rubbed it away, and we started to walk away. And one of my friends, we'll say that loosely, one of my friends kind of stayed back with me and was, why did you start to cry when that woman was talking about Mark? I was like, we just buried him like 2 hours ago. 2 hours ago. But that actually probably had a bigger impact on me, because that meant that I wasn't allowed, in my head, that I wasn't allowed to talk about it, or, you know, I couldn't tell people how I was feeling. And I actually rushed back to school then as well. So Mark died on the Thursday, and I went back to school on the Wednesday, because yeah, I don't know, I didn't know what else to do. And I actually remember after Mark died, it was might have been a week maybe after he died, I remember lying in bed one night and thinking, I actually don't know how to deal with this or how to handle this. And I specifically remember saying, just pretend it didn't happen. And that's what I did. Just pretended it didn't happen. And every time I thought about it, I just said, no, I'm not thinking about that. And it it didn't happen. So and then for about a year after he died, I was quiet anyway, but I did kind of pull back a wee bit. So even though I was quiet, I did have my friends that I would have, you know, hung out with and stuff, but I did that less and less. And I think all I did for about a year was babysit my cousins. That was like my whole social life. Going to school and babysitting my cousins. So yeah.
Because I remember you telling me, like, shortly after we first met, you said that you went on a fundraising MDUK fundraising trip back in 2006, was it?
Yeah.
My memory's not that great, and you said that was like the first time you'd kind of done something like that again, or gotten back into the community in that way. And it was I remember you saying to me it was like a life-changing experience. I don't know if it was.
Yeah, so I'd be a wee bit like Hazel as well. When Mark was alive, I never met anybody else with muscular dystrophy of any kind, let alone Duchenne, until the summer before Mark died. He went to the Share Centre, so they had like a family weekend thing that they did. So we went, and I went with Mum and Daddy to drop Mark off, and that was the first time I'd ever seen anyone else with Duchenne. But I was only there for like an hour or something and away again. And then Mark.
Can I just ask on that one, while you're remembering it, how did that was that good? How did that feel? Because I know that there is this kind of realm of like that some parents have of like, should my kids all mix with other Duchenne kids together, or should do you know what I mean?
Yeah. To be honest, I didn't really get the chance to mix with any of them, because when we went there, they were making badges. So I was making badges with Mark, really. And then I met the guy that was like kind of assigned to look after him, because the parents didn't stay. It was just the kids on their own. And then Mark ended up having to come home because in my mind, this might be different than what it is in my mind, but my memory is saying that the guy that was looking after Mark found it very stressful, Mark needing to turn so many times in the middle of the night and things like that. And I think he had maybe complained, and then there was no one else to look after. That's my memory of it. I'm not saying that that's 100% true, but that's what I remember about it at the time. So yeah, I didn't really get the chance to meet with anyone else, but I do think that would have been good for me to have experienced that and to have met other siblings. And like, I want that for Coen. I want him to know other siblings as well, because like, as I said, when Mark died, I didn't know. It was my first experience of having lost somebody. No, none of my friends had ever lost anybody in their immediate family. Nobody, you know, there was no one else who understood or who was in the same boat or even remotely the same boat.
Yeah.
And I
You felt
think,
quite isolated, I should imagine.
yeah, so I
Yeah.
think it's good. I think it's definitely good for siblings to have that kind of connection. Even, I'm not saying they have to be best friends, but just to have,
There's like a mutual connection there, isn't there? No
yeah,
matter where you are within the life of a Duchenne person, I think, yeah, you've got that relatability there immediately without having, and that's what I always say. When I met Katie and Peter, it was the strangest thing because I didn't even have to say anything. Like Peter says, like he saw right through what I was trying to do, and
Yeah.
no one ever managed to, work that out, because I'm like a good actress, and that's what we're all. I truly believe like Duchenne siblings are great actors because we're great at pushing our own feelings aside, and any nervousness or anything like that we feel, we're really good at overcoming that and just cracking on with what we need to do.
yeah,
Back of our minds, there's like 100 million things emotionally going on.
yeah.
So I can, even though my experience is very different to yours, I can definitely see where you're coming from. Absolutely.
So we had done fundraising over the years. So mum and her family would have done some years ago before us even. And then we did one with Mark actually. So I think I was in secondary school at the time, so I was 12 or 13, and we decided that we would do a fundraiser at the dog track in Dungannon, which doesn't exist anymore. But so we were all like, like my younger cousin was involved in it as well. So we were all from like 11 till about 15, and we decided that we'd do this fundraiser. So we organised a disco and things like that, which was pretty cool. And then we hadn't really done anything from after Mark died. And then in 2007, when I had decided that I wasn't going to be shy anymore, by the way, that 2007 was like
so
a
that's
big
10 years after Mark had passed.
Yeah.
So you're in your mid-20s now, and yeah.
Stop giving away my age, Peter.
Well, no, I'm just adding 10 to 14.
Yeah. So I was 24, 25, 26. So yeah. So I had decided that I wasn't going to be shy anymore, and I was saying yes to everything. And my cousin had seen on the MDK website that they were doing a track in the Sahara Desert, and she texted me, "Would I want to do this?" Now the shy person in me was going, "Do I want to go to Africa with total strangers? Like, no." So I said yes. Seriously, it was the best thing. And it was only then that I met people who had other types of muscular dystrophy and also had children or brothers with Duchenne. And it was really a life-changing experience for me, for the fact that I did it in the first place. And actually when I was there, I wasn't all that shy. I was just like normal. And I met lovely people, and I'm still friends with, some of them. And that really inspired me then to do more work with the charity. So after that, then it was Glenn Oakes who worked for Muscular Dystrophy UK. I don't know if you remember Glenn.
Oh, me and Glenn go way back.
Yeah.
I worked with Glenn at Children in Need as well.
Oh, really? Yeah. He does consultancy now, so I chat to him quite a bit on LinkedIn actually. But so I was like, look, I really want to get more involved with the charity. So if there's anything going on, do let me know. So I volunteered at the Christmas market then. So we had the Santa hut or whatever at the Christmas markets in Belfast. So I went and helped out there. I think that might actually be, I had met Michaela. No, that's actually where I met Michaela, was there at the Christmas market. And then I met her again at the Share Centre. So I went to help out. So they were doing another family week or weekend, whatever it was at that time. And I went along to that as well. So met even more people again. And then I suppose I had done a couple of wee things then in between. And then Luke was born in 2011.
Yeah, so I don't know. Do you want, that's almost like a next stage of your journey. How did you? So I think you've alluded to it a bit almost from the beginning of the chat. Not only are you a Duchenne sibling, you're a Duchenne parent as well. So I don't know. Yeah, do you want to tell us a bit about that story? And I don't know how is it? Probably as Hazel alluded to before, did it make things easier having lived part of that journey already?
Yeah. So Luke was born in 2011. Almost 12 days overdue. Another 2 hours, and he'd been 12 days overdue, and he did not want to come. But yeah, so obviously being a carrier, I knew that there was a chance that Luke had Duchenne. I hadn't got an amniocentesis or anything when I was pregnant. I was convinced I was having a girl because all I had ever seen myself with was girls. And then this wee boy, and I was so happy. I could just eat him, but and I deliberately decided not to get him tested. Or at least that first year anyway. I didn't want to. I wanted to enjoy this wee baby. So I actually went to see a fortune teller. Really silly story. So I went to see a fortune teller, and she had said to me about having a wee boy, and he might have a sensitivity to nuts, I think she told me. And I was like, and can you see, is there anything else? So she's like, no, perfectly healthy. And I'm like, okay.
Just the nuts.
Okay, that's the nuts. Yeah. And then I went to another one because I was like, I was kind of toying with whether or not to get him tested at this stage. And at this stage, Luke was perfectly healthy, progressing as any other wee boy would. So I went to another one. Same thing. No, absolutely no long-term condition or anything there. Maybe a wee thing with his ears, and to be fair, his ears club up really quickly and he's half deaf all the time. So just maybe a wee thing with the ears, but nothing else. So I was like, that okay, I'm going to get him tested. Like, 2 fortune tellers can't be wrong. Like, that just couldn't be true. So I rang and took him. It organised, he was going in on the Wednesday just to the GP to get a blood test, and the Sunday before that we went to his other granny's house, and his cousin, who was 10 weeks younger than him, was there, and there was just something about the way they were crawling on the floor. I knew there and then that Luke had it. I hadn't noticed it before, which was weird. It's just on that day, but I don't know, I suppose the way you look at things at times. But so we went on the Wednesday, had the blood test, just CK thing, and then on the Friday I had arranged to go back to the GPs at lunchtime, and it's never a good idea, it's never good news when they take you in at lunchtime, right? So I walked into the room, and I hadn't even got in the door, and she just said, "I'm sorry, Claire, it's not good news." And that was it. Now, like anybody given that news, like, what do you do? Like, my heart was broken, and couldn't go back into work, obviously. And I went up, and Mummy was sitting outside. It was a really sunny day in a heat wave, and Mummy was sitting out. Luke was sitting in the buggy in front of her. She was on the summer seat, and she was feeding him his lunch. It was spuds, like potatoes. And he was happy as Larry, and I was just like, oh my God, my heart is breaking. But he's just none the wiser. He's just, life is normal. Absolutely nothing has changed, and that's just that's how we should really be living our life. And we got home. Now, I had over the years always thought, obviously I knew I was a carrier, and thought, what would I do if my child was diagnosed? And obviously I was thinking the worst. This, oh my God, I'll be devastated. How will I ever live with that and all of that? And I remember on that Friday night, I was sitting on the coffee table, as you do. I was sitting on the coffee table, and Luke was in bed, and I was like, I have a few choices here, and then that serenity prayer was going over and over in my head. Grant me serenity to accept things I cannot change, change things I can, wisdom for the difference. And I was like, there's absolutely nothing I can do to change the fact that Luke has Duchenne. Nothing whatsoever. I can change what having Duchenne. I can try to change what having Duchenne means, and I can definitely give him the best life that is possible. And so that's what I decided to do. And the next day we went to Newcastle in County Down to the beach and had a whale of a time. And then a few days after that, Glen Oaks, again, it keeps popping up. Glenn had rang me, not knowing obviously that Luke had been diagnosed, and said that he was organising a zip line across the Lagan. Would I be interested in doing it? And I just said yes. I was actually up to Mummy's house when he asked, so I was like, yeah, we'll do that, no bother. And then I asked a few other people to do it as well, and then I created the Just Giving page and put it on Facebook, which is the first time I told anybody that Luke had Duchenne. And so many people are so generous. It's really, you really do get to see the goodness in people, you know, whenever things like this happen. So we raised loads of money, and I think there were 6 or 7 of us had done that. And I really just got so motivated and inspired, and I was like, this is what I can do, this is what I can do to try to change things. And so we did loads of fundraising, and we raised lots of money. And then, like most people, when you get involved with fundraising, after we while you start looking at other things that you can do. So then I got involved with like the Northern Ireland Council, and more closely involved with MDUK. I became a peer support volunteer. I'm now a trustee of MDUK, and you know, the ball, it just snowballs, you know.
And then you ended up working for MDUK as well.
I was there briefly as well, yeah. I took a wee stint. We all have to do it. Yeah, but yeah, so I think whenever your child is, I think it did, just to answer Hazel's question, I do think that it made it easier, probably. I'm not sure if it necessarily made it easier, but perhaps made me more determined to maybe change what that meant, and more determined to fill Luke's life with, because I know what's coming, and I know that things are different now as well. I know that too, and because I've been following, like even through the years before I had Luke, after Mark died, I still kept up to date with what was happening in terms of research and all of that. You know, I knew about exon skipping and all that kind of stuff, so I already knew that. So getting the news, I was in a position where I wasn't going on Google and reading the doom and gloom. I was coming from a position of actually knowing what the condition is, knowing how it affects people, knowing that things have actually moved quite a bit from what they were when Mark was alive, and that there was actually hope out there. And as well as that, having grown up, like our lives weren't horrific. They weren't full of doom and gloom. We, you know, when we were we had a perfectly happy life. So I knew that life isn't all doom and gloom. And you know, Mummy was so funny and full of life as well, you know, when Mark was alive and even after. And I suppose that kind of inspires you as well, because you know, that it's all.
I can definitely relate to that, definitely, because I say the exact same thing. I say, yeah, it's hard, and yeah, it's difficult, and there's elements of it that probably aren't very nice, but I say Darren lived a really good life, a really good, fulfilling life. It just so happened he had this condition, and it meant that, you know, sadly his life was shortened a little bit, but it doesn't make, you know, it's not a great tragedy.
Yeah,
it's just what it is. It was just something that happened, and it was what it was. So yeah, I can really relate to that, and I should imagine as a sibling as well that the sibling mindset is quite a unique one. So I should imagine you can approach it from such a good perspective. Being a younger sibling as well.
Well, in fact, that was just what I was going to ask as well. Your other son, Coen, who's just a bit younger than Luke, obviously doesn't have Duchenne. And how has being a sibling and having lived the life of a Duchenne sibling, how has that affected or inspired the way that you've kind of tried to bring up Coen in relation to all of that?
Coen's is a little bit different to mine in that Luke is on a clinical trial. So he's on one of the exon skipping trials. So up until March, we were going to England every week, which I'm not sure if it affected Coen as much as in my head it affected him. So like we were away every week. My mum would have stayed here every Sunday night to get Coen up for school the next day, because he had his way work early. So, you know, there he was sitting at home while Luke had me to himself for a whole day every week. And then sometimes we were away and we were staying over, and you know, I never had that. Mummy was always present with both of us all the time, and I think that probably makes me spoil Coen a wee bit more than I probably should have. And like people will say the Duchenne child is spoiled, but I think probably Coen is more spoiled than Luke. Like I would see me telling Luke off for something that I might not necessarily tell Coen off for, because and maybe that is because I can empathize with him being a sibling. And even though I don't consciously feel like growing up with a brother with Duchenne, impacted on me or my mindset, I know that it did. You know, I know that it did. So yeah, it makes me want to take more time with Coen as well. So I do make the effort to have Mummy and Coen days, which is really hard because Luke is a mummy's boy. Like, he adores me. I swear to God, Coen could take me or leave me. Coen could take me or leave me a lot of days, actually. But Luke is a pure mummy's boy. I can do no wrong. Like, every night he's like, "Mummy, I love you. Mummy, you're so beautiful. Mummy, you're this. Mummy, you're the other." He's pure. And I do find it really hard to say to him, "I'm taking Coen away
It's because
here."
he sees you looking out for Coen. He knows.
Yeah.
You're in cahoots.
Yeah.
Okay, if we finish on you, you know, the last few years, obviously your boys are, you know, slowly growing up, and you've done lots in the community over the last few years. And I was going to say that I have noticed that you've started doing a lot more, kind of coming out of your shell a lot more. You know, is there? I don't know. Is there anything behind that, or, you know,
Yeah.
what is behind it?
Yeah, so as I say, in 2007, I made the decision that I wasn't going to be the shy one anymore, and I was going to say yes. So I did, and I got onto a graduate program. I got my job, trained and became a business consultant. I was delivering training. I was speaking in front of people, doing the stuff that scared the Jesus out of me, basically. And I loved every second of it. When I do those kind of things, it drains me because I'm an introvert through and through. But oh my God, I feel like I'm such a high. And then when Luke came along, he added a passion to that drive that I didn't even know was possible. So whenever he came along and I started doing more public speaking things, I started putting myself out there more, and I was like, this is actually how you fill your life with all of the experiences that you want. This is how I'm able to give Luke everything that he wants, and that's really, you know, my way. And I suppose over the years I've just I say I would need a telescope to look back at where I was even when Mark died, in terms of like my own personal development and that kind of thing. So yeah, I do set myself kind of targets and goals. I'm really I am quite goal oriented, especially this past while. I've been doing a program called Thinking into Results. So Kim, if you're listening, there you go. But yes, and that's really helped us, and that's only a 6-month thing, so I'm only there until October now. But and that has really helped with my whole mindset around things as well, and getting me even. I was already motivated, now I'm like uber motivated, and I do actually set myself those goals, and I set myself goals that scared the life out of me deliberately. So like I set myself a goal a few years ago of doing a TEDx talk. So I also just keep doing it. So I had actually applied for 2 different TEDx things, but obviously didn't get hundreds of people apply for these. So I was like, I tell you what I'll do, I'll just host my own TEDx event. So I applied for the license, got the license. The event was cancelled, obviously. So that's still in the pipeline. And then I was able to announce yesterday that I got my speaking slot. I'm doing a TEDx talk, which is huge for me as a person coming from like I don't know what schools are like over there, but we have assemblies over here in school every week, and every class each week, you know, a different class gets up and has to do the prayers and all of that. I went 7 years through the academy avoiding ever having to read at assembly like a plague. Like I went in late, took days off and all the rest, just that I would never have to read in assembly because I have to talk to people. And that's why I wanted to do this, because number one, I wanted to prove to myself that I can do it, and I wanted to push myself, and I want to show my children that it's okay to do things that scare you, and life is bloody scary, but you know what? It's so much fun when you just go for it, and the only way to get to the other side of fear is to go through it. So
I love it, Claire.
That is the perfect way to end this interview, I think. Brilliant.
Thank
and I cannot wait to watch your TEDx talk. That's going to be great.
Yeah, is it going to be on Facebook?
It will be. So it'll be on the TEDx YouTube, and then
we'll have to share it at the time.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely.
I'm looking forward to it. Claire, thank you so much.
Thank
thank you, Claire. That's been brilliant. It's been really good.
Yeah. Right. We'll catch you all again soon.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.